You know what's really amazing? The neck pickup on a Tele. What I find about the Tele neck pickup is that it's not quite as like it hasn't got quite the full frequency spread of a strapped neck pickup. It's a little bit more in the middle, a little bit trashier, a bit more primitive, and I think a bit more in the middle. But I think it's a wonderful sound. Now, obviously, the rock star of any Telecaster sound, you know, is that bridge sound. But you know, for me, the neck sound, it's just such a beautiful sound. When I'm going for that sort of Gilmour stuff, you know, the Clapton stuff, the Gilmour stuff, single notes with a lot of bends, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, a much overlooked tone, and a vital one. I've said it before, like every guitar player needs a guitar in their life. Now, my friend ChrisTheSnailDriver, if he's in the comments, say hello, he's a wonderful chap. Me and him went again to have a look at some guitars and stuff, and he nearly bought off the shelf an Aria Pro II Telecaster. It was a wonderful guitar in a little shop in Ringwood, which has some great stuff, like a 9 grand PRS, you know, one of the private stock purple flame nonsense. I had a DWight, which I've never seen in the flesh, you know, and it had provenance as well. It's like small faces. It was like that. It was very similar to that. The scratch plate and whatnot was broken up a bit into a design. It was a little bit different to that, but a very rare guitar I've never seen in the flesh. You know, DWight were a music shop in America, and they commissioned a run of guitars from Epiphone. You know, much like Guitar Center and places do now, like GAC have just shown on their YouTube channel. They've got like a Telecaster, an FSR Player Series Telecaster, which is unique to them. And you know, like a lot of places do that all the time, and it's kind of cool. Anyway, he nearly bought a Tele on the spot because he's taken it to heart what I said to him, looking over his sort of guitar collection. Oh, you need a Telecaster in your life. Every guitar player needs a Telecaster in their life. Frankly, it's a tone that's very fundamental, very unique. I've said it before, and I'm saying it again. Now, I have had it when I used to have some pretty fucking amazing gear, and I'm pleased that some of it has stayed in the family. Now, there's a recording out there, just been uploaded onto YouTube, and bless me, if it's not me in 1997 recording my acoustic stuff, the stuff I still bloody play now. Demented Love, Cemented Love, end of the day. You know, all that stuff I still do. And it's a channel called Super 8 Rescue. Mike, if you're watching, bless you. Thank you so much. I've got a PC coming in my life because right now I am unable to communicate online except for these videos, which I basically put, you know, on my girlfriend's tablet, you know, and then upload, and then, you know, and that's it. But I can't get into my Facebook on it and quite a lot of other stuff. But wonderful, and it brought back memories. I mean, you know, I run on a very tight budget now, but back then, you know, my worst guitar was a 70 solid top Yamaha, which had like a Tune-o-matic bridge. This is an acoustic Tune-o-matic bridge and like a metal nut, and was very, I mean, it was my main songwriting guitar. I took that thing everywhere. But like I had, you know, I had the use of a library of vintage and top-end guitars, Martin D18. You know, the Guild 12 string, which you can hear on the recording. You can also hear on that recording the old, like, 19th century Kalamazoo, like lead belly era guitar. Robert Johnson, the tiny little Martin, the little parlour guitar Martin from the 30s. Crikey, a National resonator, that doesn't feature on it. My Yamaha features on it, I can hear it very distinctly. But that Yamaha stayed in the family. That was bought by Ollie Bradley, and I sold it to him for what I paid for it, because it was just a fella found it in a pub doorway one night, looked around, couldn't find the owner, sold it to me. Yeah, that was a delight. But I had, you know, back then I had loads of guitars. Like I'm glad some stayed in the family. Like Matt Swanson, bless you if you're watching, mate. God bless. He's got the Gibson Les Paul, which was like the walnut bodied, late 70s walnut bodied, ebony fretboard, carved top Les Pauls, like not an arch top. And that's like, this is before the forums and everything. It's like, you know, like that. When I sold it to him, it was loaded with a jazz at the neck and a screaming demon at the bridge, Seymour Duncan's, right? George Lynch pickup. And what a fucking great tone that had. And, you know, quite a playable Les Paul. Like, that's why I bought it. You know, I also had a Les Paul Studio, the old ones, like like the early ones, like when they still had the maple top. Like, they were essentially a standard with no trimmings, very cheaply finished. And that was a growly beast. Yeah, you know, I'm really glad that I found a Les Paul that I'm happy with that isn't a Gibson. And I think I've got room for something else like Les Paul, like in the collection. You know, I was really quite taken by that Court the other week at 400 quid. But it's just, yeah, I want something just not quite like a LTD Eclipse for sure type of thing. Going a bit thinner bodied, a bit lighter, but similar. A Gretsch Solid maybe, because that's just another step aside. Like a Malcolm Young style. Like, I was very taken by that, and it's its own thing. But yeah, I am full of praise for those Gretches. But anyway, like now the Telecasters that I had, this is where my thinking started to change. I bought a purple, very similar actually to Danish Pete's guitar. This is from Bees Music in Chichester. And it was a purple US Tele, Fender US Tele, and it had been dropped, and it had an enormous chunk right there, nowhere else, not a mark anywhere else, and an enormous great fucking chunk right in the front, so they knocked it down massively. Now I didn't care, I wanted a pair of stage Teles, and so I got it. And then around the same time, I got for 150 quid, a Japanese 90s Tele, and it was beautiful. It was like a candy apple red metallic, and it had a maple fretboard. The purple one had a rosewood fretboard. Now and for 150 quid, it had like a Dodge pedal in the gig bag. I think it was a chorus, and I've always preferred ever since before that, but like, I love the Digitech Dodd chorus sound. That's my favourite chorus sound above all. Yeah, it had one of those in the gig bag, and like a bunch of leads and shits, you know, just accessories, capos and, you know, bits. But for 150 quid to have all that stuff in the gig bag as well. But a wonderful guitar. Now, I much preferred, it turned out, because I changed the pickups in the Les Paul studio, and I put the 498Ts, 498T and 500 whatevers in the Teles, in the neck position, and just left the original pickups in there. This was the beginning of learning, like, the advantages of volume disparity running a valve amp. At that time I was running a 50 watt master volume and a El Pico, depending on the venue, and a few effects, like some, looking back, some brilliant effects. But now the Fender, but the USA Fender Tele was much more desirable. It had the ashtray bridge, the traditional like saddles, you know, better pickups, you know, but thicker neck, more vintage spec, and string through like this, yeah, string through. Notice the cutaway on this, by the way. That's an original thing. This is a Court 80s Korean Court, and this is a J&D Brother Wanks. What are they called? By Jack and Danny Brothers. You know, apparently they're going out of business. Good, piss off. I say that, they're actually not bad guitars for the money. They're actually worth a look, and you know, go have a look at them. I'm being hard just because I'm annoyed that this neck isn't the Court neck, because it really would actually be a valuable and interesting guitar. But this is a total bit, so I've told this story many times. This is actually a stacked single coil for a Strat that's been bodged onto a plate that's been made with tin snips. But yeah, I grew to much prefer the Japanese Tele. Now that was less desirable. It had the bridge like this, like this. In fact, the differences are exact. Actually, this is kind of a flashback that I'm only just realising as we speak. It had the 6 saddles, the longer, flatter bridge, you know, the all-access bridge, and it was a top pull. Okay, it was a top pull, and so it was much less an interesting guitar, but I much preferred it. It was much better. Now, when I close my eyes and just play it, not the sound, the pickups are very different. This has got these like Axle by EMG things, right? They're very modern. You know, underneath they're just the same as normal Tele pickups, but obviously that one's like very. I've not actually done that one, but with, you know, acoustically as a guitar, just sitting here. This very much reminds me of my old Japanese Fender. That's why I bought this guitar. It's got the maple neck. Now, for Fender, specifically for Fender, because I think it's a Fender thing, I prefer the maple fretboard. I really do. I love the rosewood as well. I love them both. And I've got Strats here with both like rosewood and maple. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I've got Strats with rosewood and maple, and Teles, okay, with rosewood and maple, right? So it's like I love them both, but I just prefer the maple boards, because it's a Fender thing. You didn't see it much before Fender came along. It was not something you saw, and it's part of the crazy bolt-on construction of a Telecaster. But yeah, these got some of the same differences. Like this one's top pull, it's got an ashtray, it's got the 3 saddles, and the other, and a maple board, and the other one is like modern, you know, bridge design with the string through and the rosewood board. This is actually a nice rosewood board. I'm being hard on Jack and Danny. But yeah, I much preferred the Yamaha over the American one, and that's because I was very much a purist. When I first started out, it was like heavy metal guitars, you know, like BC Rich, Gibson Explorer. You know, my first real guitar was a Flying V, an Antoria Flying V that was actually very good. I love that guitar now. You know, that was my main guitar for a very long time. And I was like, you know, Flying V guy. Like, you know, it's like it just comes, you know, it becomes part of your animus, you know, part of your personality and your image, I guess. Is like, yeah, you're the Flying V guy. And I was that for yonks. And then I went to double cuts, and I had like Vantage, and then, you know, I had all sorts. And but yeah, when I went into getting Telecasters, this was as a result of just, you know, seeing a lot of live bands, working for live bands, and understanding, you know, like what the Tele did, and trying someone's out and just loving it. And so, you know, when I bought the stage pair, I got very much of a purist mindset, really. You know, I'd learnt it. You know, I had peers that were very purist, and so I learnt it. But that's when I started to break away, because I much preferred the Japanese one. And at the end of the day, it's eye of the beholder stuff. It's in the hand and the ear of the guy playing the guitar. It's very much up to you. It's up to you what you think is good and what works. And it's down to you. When it sounds good, you know. When people enjoy the playing, if you enjoy what's being played at you, right? That's when it's good. It's, you know, it's very much subjective. But there are also objectively good quality sounds. But yeah, it started to change me, because it was like, yeah, don't get caught up in it, whether it's strings or not. And like this is far, you know, on paper a better like, I much prefer the Axel. Okay, I'm not changing a thing on that Axel, not a thing. You know, those pickups would not hold up live, but like here in the studio, they work wonderfully. They do exactly what I want for like the clean Tele, and I'd still use it for the dirt. This one is a bit different. This is a bit more full-bodied. Neck pickup. I mean, I've got everything full out, and you can like hear it's like this is not like a Strat pickup, right? It's in the same ballpark. I don't think there's as much separation. As I said earlier, it's been like top and tailed, right? But I love the sound. It's a little bit more primitive, a little bit trashier. And really responds to my player input when I strike hard, when I play gently, really responds to that. Little bit honky, little bit bluesy. You know, you can hear that sort of stratiness come through, but it's more primitive. You know, it's more sort of in the middle. It's like the top and the bottom has been sliced off a little bit. It's not quite got the dynamic range, but it's very touch sensitive, very playable. Very like throaty, growly. You know, it's right down the middle of the chute. It's a wonderful warm sound. And again, it just shows you, like, you know, I'm a little, you know, I've obviously got, yeah, I like my guitars. And I've got a couple of Teles, and it's like, yeah, do I need a couple of Teles? But you should listen to how different they are. This is more stratty, right? said earlier, it's like not the typical, these EMGs, they're not the typical like Tele pickups. It still sounds Tele, but it's got a flavour to it, which is why I've got a more vintage spec one. And much as it's really cool what the guy's done with the, you know, when I bought this, and it's like, yeah, you don't often see Teles with white pickups, and I could see something was amiss. And when I opened it up, it's a stacked single coil, right? So it's a humbucker really. They don't sound properly single coil as far as I'm concerned. A little bit, yeah. They're a bit too sort of consistent across the attack range, but it's a shallow coil on top of another shallow coil, right? And then like he's made like out of a piece of tin, right? And he's literally like cut out a fucking triangle shape and mounted it on it and used a bit of fucking glue to seal it. Like instead of wax potting, he's used like fucking PVA or some shit. It's a bizarro mess, but you know, I respect it. I respect what he's done, because that's a pickup that if you wanted to buy it would be really expensive, and it does it well. I'll give you a quick demo, but it's too stratty. Nice, right? But it's not Tele, right? That's Strat, right? So I'm just going to put like a Wilkinson or something, a more traditional Telecaster pickup in there. And that's it, that's all I'm going to do to that. Because, you know, it's like the two visually are a yin-yang, right? Do you see what I mean? Do you see what I'm getting at? Like one's black with the red sort of tortoiseshell lavary scratch plate, the other one's sort of like red sort of paisley burst with the black scratch plate. Do you get me? So all I'm going to do is put that sort of traditional pickup in there, and I think it will look just right as it is. I was going to change the neck and all this. You know what? No, I'm not going to bother. If I come across like a Court Telecaster neck, sort of something that will actually like work, that is better, that will actually like bring it back to some semblance of like original, you know, or of what it is, maybe. But the neck does the job. It's a Strat neck on a Tele. Never mind. I'm not going to bother. But yeah, I'm just going to take that. Take it back to that sort of proper trad Tele bridge. But yeah, this is really... just extolling those benefits of a Tele neck pickup. Because as I say, the bridge pickup is always the star. It's that bite. But the neck pickup has really got a quality of its own. Those are some warm flames. And I get a lot of fucking pleasure out of just playing a Telecaster. You know, it's a specific studio voice. It is not by any means my main guitar, so it's a specialist, right? It's a specialist, it's a tone specialist, it's a studio voice, a colour in the palette. But you can hear how their tonal character is totally different. I'm keeping this pickup because it's quite fat. I think you could accuse it perhaps of being a bit muddy, but I can get away with it here in the studio. I might get a pair of Wilkinsons, they're pretty cheap. So yeah, so you know, go home, try your Tele neck pickup. Did I show you the DWight? I showed you the DWight. Yeah, so like soon, I'm going to do an episode soon and next, like probably next, and it's going to be about marriage and bondage. Marriage and bondage. By what I mean is like bonding together a multi-effects pedal, like the, and guess what I'm going to use? I'm going to use the Stomp Lab 2G. Going to the Vox VT20. So there are a lot of problems with marrying a multi-effects unit, which has amp simulators and stuff on it, to a you know, fully tech Line 6 style modelling amplifier, which has all the effects built in and is a modelling amp. Usually it turns to mush, but there are ways to deal with it, and you have enormous capability with two devices with a very small interface, right? You know, spread out across the floor with a million pedals. All right, it's very compact. Just that amp, which is actually a 30-watt amp, it's got a power attenuator on it, which is really bloody clever. Which, you know, goes down to like half a watt and all the way up to 30. But yeah, that's got enormous capability on its own, and pairing it up with the multi-effect, which also has enormous capability. Now, I have really been working hard on this because it's a problem I wanted to solve, and I've learnt a lot along the way. You know, as my practice rig, like today, you know, I generally go like into the Stomp Lab and then into the old 90s Hohner HR30R, you know, solid state amp. It's a 30 watt solid state amp with a nice warm sort of tone. It's warmer than a Fender, like, and it's got like an effects loop. It's got a built-in reverb, which is, you know, very cheap and trashy, and I like that. A lot of like crazy reflection. It's got like two different inputs, like a normal and a bright type of idea. It's got 2 channels. You know, I put the miles on that to basically avoid putting the miles on my little Champ 110, which is a beautiful amp. You know, crystal clear. It's got that wonderful Fender solid state clean channel, which it does that remarkably. I'm going to do a whole program on that soon, a whole episode on that. But yeah, these are problems that, you know, I was keen to solve, because when I first tried it, it was just mush. And I think it is kind of common sense that, you know, a multi-effect isn't going to go into a modelling amp that's going to be like mush. But I've discovered there are 2 methodologies to doing it, and it's wonderful. When you suddenly have the capability, it's wonderful. And superbly interesting. So there's going to be an episode on that, and it's not going to be specific, because of course I'm going to be using Vox gear, but like it's not going to be specific. This will work for any multi-effect system and any modelling amp system. Okay, it's more like a sort of approach philosophy. It's an attack vector. It's a fucking buzzword acclimatizer. So yeah. So it's been remarkably touching to fucking hear recordings that go back to 1997, done in a proper studio. Mike, bless you, my friend. It's so good to see you. I'll be back online. I'll get in touch. But for everybody else, please go and have a look. I haven't got the ability to put the link below. So Mike, if you could put the link below again in the comments, or I'll do it when I've got my PC up and running. But it's a studio session. It's my acoustic songs, many of which you'd have heard before, many times, probably some of you. Yeah, please give it a listen. It's about like 25 minutes long, and yeah, it's wonderful. It's good to see Mike among the living. So yeah, Super 8 Rescue channel. It's called Super 8 Rescue. It's got like the HMS Ark Royal on the thumbnail, and be nice to the guy because he's a top fella and he helped me out a lot there, you know, accommodating me in that studio. He done me a massive favour, and to hear the stuff back, you know, I remember that it was such good times. But yeah, if you're watching, Mike, bless you, man, love you to bits. And ChrisTheSnailDriver, I'll see you soon, and I shall tell you all about it, everybody. If he does buy the Telecaster, I shall tell you all about it. Did I tell you about that? Did I tell you all about the Aria Pro II Telecaster? Yeah, I'm sure I did. Anyway, anything I missed out, I'll catch up in the next one. Sorry, it's been a rambling mess. I had to re-record it. There were problems with the first one. And, yeah, love you all to bits. Take care of yourselves. And, you know, safe journeys and happy trails on those fretboards.